Do you believe that objects can hold immense power? That they can capture fragments of our reality, twisting them for their own sinister purposes? Let me tell you about the Mélange lantern, a relic soaked in mystery, death, and unparalleled terror. Oh, but please, keep your lights on. This one will seep into the darkest corners of your mind. In the unassuming French village of Brissy, stories whispered through centuries spoke of a merchant, Eloy. He was known for his exotic wares, but his treasure was the Mélange lantern. It hung in his shop, casting a peculiar, shifting light that mesmerized all who saw it. A kaleidoscope of shadows danced, hypnotic and strange, as if painting the turmoil of unseen dimensions. Villagers began noticing oddities around Eloy's shop. People who stayed too long in its glow claimed they heard voices, not loud or clear, but fragmented, hushed whispers, like an argument in a language you've long forgotten. One man reported hearing his own voice fighting with itself, twisting accusations and regrets he'd long buried. The folklore surrounding the lantern grew darker over time. Old tales suggested that it wasn't just any lamp, but one forged in a blend of earthly metals and something far, far older. They said Eloy made deals in the black markets of Marseille, trading not in coins, but in secrets, whispered, blood-sealed truths. But the lantern was his masterpiece, a mix of metal and myth, doused in an abyss of sin. Centuries passed, and the lantern vanished after Eloy's sudden disappearance. Some claimed it devoured him the night he lit it for the last time, but there was nothing. No merchant, no body, just the faint smell of ozone and ash lingering by his shop door. It was a decade or so ago that the lantern resurfaced, and its new owner, Mr. Holden, unknowingly triggered its cursed legacy. Mark Holden was an antiques dealer in London, not particularly superstitious, and certainly not someone who believed in whispered folklore or artifacts with a past. However, business had been failing, and in desperation, he'd purchased the bizarre-looking lantern from an estate auction in Normandy, unaware it had sat in a locked cabin for nearly 60 years, cloaked in desperate measures to shield the public from its malignancy. On the night Mark first lit it, the glowing patterns on its surface transformed his apartment into a kaleidoscope of nightmares. Shadows on the walls twisted not into human forms, but something primordial, grotesque. Limbs that bent the wrong way, whispers that grew into chants that erupted into howls. The light reached into the unlit corners of his soul, dragging secrets he wanted buried to the surface. He thought he'd extinguished it. Before going to bed that night, Mark placed it in a locked glass cabinet, the kind meant to protect valuables. But sleep eluded him. Hallways stretched unnaturally when he tried walking through them. The glow returned, dim though it was, tracing a line under his bedroom door. And the voices, they weren't his anymore. They turned accusatory, cruel, and sharp as knives. "Mark, what have you done? You left her there, alone. She called for you." He froze in bed, paralyzed. In his panic, he remembered, 8 years ago, a tragedy he had rationalized as inevitable. His sister Jessica's drowning while he sipped whiskey by the lake cabins. He avoided her laughter when she called for him to join her swim, and therefore he wasn't there when she struggled. The voice was hers, unmistakable. Night after night, the lantern didn't just remind Mark of her death. It began projecting images. In his living room, barely visible but crawling like smoke against the walls, grotesque replays of his sister's final moments unfolded. The temperature in his flat plummeted as Jessica's silhouette clawed at the thresholds of his walls. The breaking point arrived when he noticed. Clear as sunlight through curtains, she whispered that the lantern doesn't just remember and torment. It takes memories, moments, and then manifests them permanently. The world you knew isn't around you anymore. It's it now, swallowing your part of reality piece by piece. And if unchecked, it will even bring forth people's core fears. This could have been Mark's fate. But in his desperation to be freed from the lantern and its horror, Mark Holden